What's good, everyone, and welcome into another edition of the World Class Hoops podcast. I'm your host, Rouse, coming to you from my hometown of Chicago, Illinois. Getting ready to give you some predictions on the upcoming 2021 NBA playoffs. Getting ready to start in about 15 minutes. The first round of the playoffs will begin with the Milwaukee Bucks and the Miami Heat. I'm going to give you my predictions in terms of the bracket. So I'm going to go basically start with the top in the West and then go top from some 1 to 8 in the West to 2 to 7 in the East. That's how we're going to do it today. So it's going to be real quick right before the playoffs get going. Remember, you can catch the World Class Hoops podcast on Twitter at WCHP Media and on Facebook at World Class Hoops Podcast. Also available on Apple, Google, Spotify, Anchor, and YouTube. Remember, that's the World Class Hoops Podcast. And also on Facebook at World Class Hoops Podcast. And you can catch me on Twitter and Instagram at KINGROUSE 21. That's King Rouse 21 at KINGROUSE 21. So let's get into it, man. The 2021 NBA playoffs, they're finally here, man. It's been I gotta say, man, it's been a draining season for me, man. With all the injuries this year, a lot of guys out, a lot of issues due to COVID. The Bulls missing the playoffs, of course. It's been a bit of a draining season, man. But nothing gets me rejuvenated like playoff time to get back on the microphone. And today, the playoffs start with the Bucks and Heat. Like I said, in about 15, probably less than that now, less than 15 minutes now. But in the Western Conference, the Utah Jazz, the 1 seed team with the best record in the league, pretty much from wire to wire. Only 31-5 at home this season. I remember there was a point Utah. I remember at one point this year Utah was 31-9, so they were the last team to lose 10 games. So shout out to the Utah Jazz, led by head coach Quinn Snyder. Also Donovan Mitchell. He is slated to play despite the ankle injury, and they're going to go up against the Memphis Grizzlies, who just beat the Golden State Warriors last night to win the 8th seed in the play-in tournament, the new NBA play-in tournament. In this Utah-Memphis series, man, I got Utah in 6. I can see the Jazz beating Memphis in 6 games. I think the X factor for this series will be, other than Donovan Mitchell's ankle, I think it'll be Memphis's inexperience. I think Utah is a team that can methodically wear you down while still speeding you up. I think with the way Quinn Snyder has coached this Jazz team, I think he should win. Personally, I think he should win Coach of the Year, as I said in the 2021 NBA Awards predictions episode I did earlier this week. But just the way he uses like the floor spacing, I'm sorry, the guys in the rotation for floor spacing. You got George Niang, Royce O'Neal, you got Bojan Bogdanovic, Joe Ingles. I just really think this Utah team, this is probably one of the more convincing Utah teams I've seen in a long time. And don't get me wrong, I like Memphis, I like Ja Morant, I like Dillon Brooks, who he's a player I think has been like a year away for like 2 years now, having issues with foul trouble, but he's got all the tools to be another star on that team alongside Ja Morant. And also, the way Jonas Valanciunas has played as well as of late inside for Memphis. I think that could give him at least 2 games, probably the 2 at home in Memphis, honestly. But I think overall, Utah's ability to wear you down with the high pick and roll, and then if you play them well on the high pick and roll, they do a great job of spacing you out with their shooters with all the guys I named earlier. So I got Utah in 6 in that series, going to the second round, where they will meet who I think is the team I picked at the beginning of the season to win the Western Conference. But I'll be lying if I said I wasn't nervous about the Los Angeles Clippers going into this series against the Dallas Mavericks in the 4-5 matchup. And the reason why I'm nervous is because last year these two teams met in the first round of the playoffs, and Dallas did not have Kristaps Porzingis, and Dallas had an opportunity to take that series from the Clippers. And on top of that, the Clippers having their own postseason history issues, as we saw last year, blowing the 3-1 lead to Denver, never even making it to the Western Conference Finals. But I just think with all the load management for Kawhi Leonard, Paul George seems like he's on a mission. I thought Paul George played very well throughout the regular season. He did have his days where he was off, but I just thought there was also a lot of times where you would see more criticism of Paul George than credit where it was deserved. And I thought Paul George had a very good year. And I'm taking the Clippers to win this series, but I think this is going 7 games, much the same as I thought it was going last year. I thought Kristaps Porzingis. I think Kristaps Porzingis will be the X factor in this series for Dallas. They've been getting good performances out of people such as Dorian Finney-Smith, Trey Burke, and Dorian Finney-Smith. So I think this Dallas Mavericks team, they really have a shot as they go up against the Clippers, who also, I picked them to win the West, man, but I wasn't really a fan of the Lou Williams trade. I thought they should have kept him. I thought they should have kept Lou Williams, kept him on the team, and then that way you kind of get a swivel of a 3-guard lineup with him, Reggie Jackson or Rajon. Well, they wouldn't have got Rondo, but he would have had Lou Williams, Reggie Jackson, and you could probably switch them in and out into that backcourt with Patrick Beverly. You have a kind of a decent 3-guard lineup where you can sometimes trade offense for defense. So, but that's not the case. So the Clippers, honestly, it's going to be interesting to see how they match up in the series, because I think interior they're going to have some issues, like I said, against Porzingis and some of the guys that can shoot from the floor, like Maxi Kleber. His ability to stretch the floor for Dallas might cause them some issues. But with all of that being said, man, I'm still going Clippers in 7. I just think they have something to prove, so they're going to advance to the next round. 3-6 Portland, Denver. That's Denver-Portland in the 3-6 matchup. I got Denver winning that series, probably in 6 games. The keys for me in that series is one of the juniors. It's either going to be Michael Porter Jr. or Gary Trent Jr. for Portland. I think whichever one of them. I think Michael Porter Jr., he's really good. I mean, stating the obvious, he's really good. However, sometimes I think he can lose track of playing within the Denver offense and start looking for his own shot a little too much. And I think Denver, they're going to really need him to be tamed with that, especially with Jamal Murray out in the playoffs. If he can maintain it, I think Denver can win this in 6. Gary Trent Jr., it's a matter of if he's hot or not. Gary Trent Jr. he's had some real hot stretches throughout the season for the Portland team. Also, Norman Powell. They traded him for Norman Powell. Norman Powell has had some really tough stretches throughout the season. So I think Norman Powell, if he has a hot series against Denver, going up against Michael Porter Jr., I think he can kind of swing that one a little bit for the Blazers, because when he was in Toronto, sometimes he would be the de facto closer for the Raptors, and then when he went to Portland, they sort of used him kind of in that 3-guard rotation, like I was saying with the Clippers with Dame, Anthony Simons, and C.J. McCollum. So they kind of switch him in and out. I would like to see Norman Powell. I can't believe I actually wrote Gary Trent Jr. I'm sorry. Well, Norman Powell is who I meant. Norman Powell and Michael Porter Jr. Those are the guys that I think are going to be the X factor in this series. In the 2-7 matchup, the Suns and the Lakers, it was hard for me to pick against the Lakers in this series, man. But I think I got Phoenix in 7 in this series, man. Just because the Lakers, I can see them being worn down. They gave us the playoff moment against the Golden State Warriors. Don't get me wrong, I do think this Lakers team, I have to see it to believe it, but I just think Phoenix, the way they've been playing this year with Chris Paul actually playing at an MVP level again this season, Devin Booker having a great year, DeAndre Ayton's interior presence, also Monty Williams, a Coach of the Year candidate, all the floor spacers on that team. We talk about Mikal Bridges, Cameron Johnson. I think Phoenix really has a chance to win this series, and I think the Suns will take this in 7 games. I think, don't get me wrong, it's going to be a battle. It will be tough, but I just think the Lakers might wear down. This is where I think the Lakers are going to wear down, man. I think Phoenix will take advantage of the Lakers wearing down with all their injuries all season long, also having that long trek last year in the playoffs through the bubble, and then also, coming off of a tough win against Golden State in the play-in tournament. I think you could see Phoenix probably take these first 2 games just off of a worn-down Lakers team. So I got Phoenix in 7. In the Eastern Conference, this was another tough one for me because the X factor in this series is the 3-point shooting for the Philadelphia 76ers. They're going up against the Washington Wizards. I kind of want to pick the Wizards, but I'm going with Philly, man. I think the Wizards, the X factor for me in this series is that the Wizards will have the Wizards' offense. They can make Philadelphia have to defend at every position. So I think you'll see the Wizards give Philadelphia some trouble, and I think this series too is going to go 7 games. So I think Philadelphia 6 or 7. It's going to be a long series. I think Philadelphia and Washington is probably going to go 7, but I got Philadelphia pulling through. Like I said, the X factor is the shooting. Danny Green. They've got Seth Curry, Furkan Korkmaz. Those guys can all shoot the ball very well. However, I just think sometimes when Danny Green in the playoffs, you can get good Danny, bad Danny, and I'm not really sure which Danny we're going to get. And plus, Russell Westbrook and Bradley Beal have been on a tear as of late. I think I can see Washington taking this series, but I'm going with Philly in 7 to get to the next round. In the 4-5 match, this is another one. Man, pretty much that East. I almost got that whole East going 7 on the top side. On the top side, I got the whole East going 7. I got Atlanta, New York, I got that going 7 games. The X factor in that series for me will be John Collins. I think he's going to really have to really produce on the offensive end going up against Julius Randle. And on top of that, they're going to really need him to help on the interior going up against New York's interior weapons as well, such as Julius Randle. And then also the guys that can score at the perimeter, like Derrick Rose, Emmanuel Quickley, very good at getting to the rim. So John Collins defending the rim and scoring on the other end, I think that'll be the X factor for Atlanta. in that series, I got New York winning that in 7 games. But I'm gonna tell you like this: I could see that series coming down to Trae Young having Trae Young hitting the game winner, or the Knicks completely winning by 20 points, just locking Atlanta down. So that's one of those series I really could see going either way. But I think Tom Thibodeau, he's really done a good job with New York, and he has some veteran presence. He has some veterans in that locker room with Taj Gibson and Derrick Rose, even Julius Randle. He's been around for quite a while. But this is gonna be, I believe this is his first playoffs actually. So this is gonna be interesting for the New York Knicks. I think they get past the first round. They'll meet Philadelphia in the second round. On the bottom half of the bracket, I picked Milwaukee to win the East. So I'm sticking with that. And and not to be disrespectful to Miami, I think Milwaukee wins this in 5. I just think, once again, Miami might wear down much the same as I think is going to happen with the Lakers on the other end of the bracket. I think Miami, they proved they can be a tough out, but the X factor for me in this series will be Giannis. Simply as that, his three-point shooting. That was what cost them in the series last year against Miami. Jimmy Butler's ability to force him to take tough shots. I think if he can knock some shots down or find other ways to get players involved, such as P.J. Tucker or Drew Holiday, I think that's where Milwaukee kind of will have the advantage in this series this year, is that they have more weapons now that can actually shoot the ball around Giannis, like P.J. Tucker and Drew Holiday, that can settle the team down when they hit some struggles. So I think Milwaukee takes this in 5 games. Also, I think Miami, like I said, much like the Lakers, battling up a steep hill, man. Like, you got to start the playoffs you're going to be starting almost every series on the road, unless you get an 8 seed, or in Miami's case, Boston. But it's going to be an uphill battle for Miami and the Lakers. And lastly, in the 2-7 matchup, honestly, this is a pretty easy series for me to pick. I got Brooklyn beating Boston in 5. And honestly, I'm honestly giving Boston game 4 at home just because of Celtic pride. But honestly, I just think Boston's overmatched in this series. They don't have Jaylen Brown; he'll be out. Also, with the guards off the bench, Peyton Pritchard and Carson Edwards, they can score. But the issue with them is if they have an off night against Brooklyn, which is a team that runs up and down, takes the ball out the net, immediately tries to score, I think it could be a long series for Boston. I think it could be a long series for the Boston Celtics. So I got Brooklyn winning that series in 5 games against Boston. So to recap, I got Utah in 6, Clippers in 7. I got the Suns in 7, and I also have the Nuggets in 6. And then in the Eastern Conference, I got Philadelphia in 7, New York in 7, and I've got Milwaukee and Brooklyn, which I thought was going to be the Eastern Conference Finals. Apparently, we're getting that in the second round, possibly, hopefully. I got both of them winning in 5. So those are my 2021 NBA first round playoff predictions. I apologize, Gary Trent Jr., Norman Powell. Norman Powell. Hey, I wrote Michael Porter Jr., and then I was like, right, Gary Trent got traded for Norman Powell. Norman Powell is who I meant when I was talking about Portland, Denver. Norman Powell, like I said, man, I remember Toronto. Sometimes he would be the de facto closer. I remember there were some games he would take that last shot. And he also, I remember a few years ago, when Danny Green was actually struggling, I even suggested he start. So Norman Powell actually has a knack for playing pretty well in the playoffs. So I think he'll be key in that series against Denver. But I just got Denver going in 6. He and Michael Porter Jr. will be going at it. So Denver in that series in 6. And those are my 2021 NBA first round playoff predictions. Once again, Utah in 6 over Memphis, Clippers in 7 over Dallas, Phoenix in 7 over the Lakers, and Denver in 6 over Portland, Philadelphia in 7 over Washington, New York in 7 over Atlanta, Milwaukee in 5 over Miami, and Brooklyn in 5 over Boston. And once again, those are the 2021 NBA playoff predictions. We had to repeat it just to make sure I got it. Remember, you can follow the show on Twitter at WCHP Media, Facebook at World Class Hoops Podcast. You can catch me on Twitter and Instagram at KingRouse21, KingRouse21. Happy NBA playoffs, man. I'm about to go enjoy some games. Y'all do the same. So positive energy to you all, and enjoy these NBA playoffs. I know I will.